By the close of the 1970s, Bon Scott stood at the center of one of rock music's most explosive success stories. As the unmistakable voice of AC/DC, he had helped propel the band from Australian pub circuits to international arenas packed with roaring fans. His grin was mischievous, his lyrics rebellious and often humorous, and his presence on stage carried a wild unpredictability that audiences adored. To millions, Bon Scott looked indestructible, a man built from whiskey, volume, and pure nerve. But success at that scale comes with invisible weight. The Highway to Hell album marked AC/DC's true breakthrough into the American and European markets. It wasn't just another record, it was the one that changed everything. The tour that followed was relentless. City after city, night after night, interviews in the daytime and performances that demanded maximum energy under blinding lights. The pressure to maintain momentum was constant, and Bon, as the frontman, carried much of that burden. Those close to him noticed subtle changes. Bon had always enjoyed drinking. It was part of the rock culture he embraced and even celebrated in song. Yet by late 1979 and early 1980, the drinking seemed less like celebration and more like coping. Exhaustion lingered in his eyes. He laughed as loudly as ever, but friends later described a kind of weariness beneath the humor. Bon's health history made things more complicated. Years earlier, a serious motorcycle accident had left him with lasting injuries, including dental damage that required a removable plate. Combined with years of heavy alcohol use, his body had endured more punishment than most realized. Still, he rarely complained. In interviews, he projected toughness. Slowing down was never part of the image. When the Highway to Hell tour ended in early 1980, the band was preparing to regroup and begin writing new material. There was no sense of finality. In fact, excitement about the next album was already building. Bon remained in London while plans were forming. The future appeared wide open. London at that time was a powerful mix of glamour and grit. The city's music scene thrived on late nights, packed clubs, and constant movement. Musicians, journalists, producers, and underground figures all crossed paths in dimly lit venues. It was an environment charged with ambition and excess. Bon fit naturally into that world. He enjoyed conversation, storytelling, and the unpredictable nature of nightlife. On February 18, 1980, Bon went out into that familiar London rhythm. Accounts of the evening vary in detail, but most agree that he had been drinking. Some witnesses later described him as heavily intoxicated as the night progressed. Others insisted he seemed coherent earlier in the evening. These conflicting memories would later become part of the larger debate. At some point during the night, Bon left a club with an acquaintance. The winter air outside was bitterly cold. According to the official account, Bon had become too intoxicated to continue and was placed in a parked car so he could rest. The assumption was simple. He would sleep it off and recover by morning, as he reportedly had before. What followed remains the most debated portion of the story. The official timeline states that Bon remained in the car overnight. When he was checked on later the next day, he was found unresponsive. Emergency services were contacted, and he was transported to King's College Hospital in London. Despite efforts to revive him, he was pronounced dead. The coroner ruled the cause of death as acute alcohol poisoning, categorized as death by misadventure. The explanation suggested that excessive alcohol consumption led to respiratory failure, possibly exacerbated by aspiration. On paper, it was a tragic but straightforward conclusion. Yet over the decades, questions have persisted. One major area of discussion involves timing. Reports differ on exactly when Bon was last seen conscious and when he was discovered unresponsive. Human memory, especially under emotional shock, can be unreliable. Still, the gaps have fueled speculation. Another factor frequently discussed is the cold weather that night. February in London can be unforgiving. Alcohol significantly reduces the body's ability to regulate temperature. Hypothermia can develop quietly, particularly when someone is unconscious. Although exposure was not officially listed as a cause, some observers believe the freezing temperatures may have worsened his condition. Medical understanding and toxicology testing in 1980 were not as advanced as today. While official reports did not indicate the presence of illicit drugs, modern discussions sometimes raise the possibility of undetected contributing factors. However, no confirmed evidence has emerged to overturn the original findings. There are also conflicting accounts regarding Bond's physical state when discovered. In many fatal alcohol poisoning cases involving aspiration, there are clear signs present. Some reports suggest such signs were minimal. Others maintain that the medical conclusion was consistent with the evidence at the time. Without access to complete documentation, these details remain part of ongoing debate rather than established fact. For AC/DC, the news was devastating. The band had just reached a level of global success they had worked years to achieve. Losing their frontman at that moment felt surreal. Angus and Malcolm Young reportedly considered ending the band altogether. Bon was not just a vocalist, he was a personality that shaped their identity. Ultimately, encouragement from Bon's family helped influence their decision to continue. They believed he would have wanted the music to go on. That belief became a turning point. The band began searching for a new singer, eventually finding Brian Johnson. The album that followed, Back in Black, would become one of the most successful records in music history. Its stark black cover symbolized mourning. Songs like Hell's Bells carried emotional gravity. Though Brian Johnson brought his own style, the spirit of Bon Scott remained deeply woven into the project. Commercially, the album surpassed expectations beyond imagination. Artistically, it transformed grief into momentum. Yet success did not erase the loss. Interviews in later years suggest that Bon's absence was always felt, even during triumph. Over time, Bon Scott's story evolved into legend. He became emblematic of rock's wild era, charismatic, fearless, and untamed. His death joined the long list of tragic losses that shaped music history in the late 20th century. And like many sudden deaths, it left space for interpretation. It is human nature to seek deeper meaning when someone larger than life dies unexpectedly. Was it simply a tragic accident fueled by exhaustion and excess? Were there environmental or physiological factors that compounded the situation? The official record remains unchanged, yet discussions continue. What cannot be debated is Bon Scott's impact. His voice defined a sound that still fills stadiums today. His lyrics blended humor with grit in a way that felt authentic and immediate. He was both performer and storyteller, capable of turning ordinary experiences into electrifying anthems. More than 4 decades later, the mystery surrounding his final hours remains part of his legacy, not because definitive proof suggests something else occurred, but because unanswered details leave room for curiosity. Sometimes history offers complete clarity. Other times, it leaves us with fragments. In the end, Bon Scott's life tells a larger story about ambition, excess, creativity, and the human limits behind rock mythology. The myth may portray him as invincible, but the reality reminds us that even legends are vulnerable. His music endures, his influence persists, and the questions, whether fully answerable or not, continue to invite reflection, not just about how he died, but about how intensely he lived.